And I foresee that being dangerous. If you're not paying attention, take that right in the shin. Good morning, y'all. Today we're looking at July 5th. Yesterday was the 4th of July. And kind of typical for us is to be between, I always say, the same day all the guys are going out to start haying is usually when we start spraying fungicide. Obviously this year, had we had, say, lentils or peas, even barley, we probably would have already been spraying because we started seeding a week earlier, but it has been fairly cool. There hasn't been a lot of, plus 25, plus 28 days, and there's been a lot of rain. So in an average year, we'd be starting today kind of thing. I think because we were early, but it's been cool, I think crops are a little bit behind. Seems like the durum is a bit slow. I talked to a couple neighbors and they have the same variety of durum, planted about the same time within a couple days, and they're all saying the same thing. It's like, yeah, the wheat that was planted a little later is a little ahead. I don't know. I got Donlow durum in, and I got Wheatland wheat hard red spring in. Looks like the wheat is ready. So because the wheat is ready first, it's going to get sprayed first. Pretty obvious there. So we've got a few things left to do to get the sprayer ready. So we did put the skinnies on. We forgot to turn on the water last night to fill up the tanks, and I probably should open this valve. Fungicide, pretty high rate. Wheat is probably 10 to 12 gallons an acre. We don't normally spray canola. Both Dad and I are on the fence about it. I'm leaning towards no, he's leaning towards some of his land that's been short rotation, where it's pretty much been cereal canola. That's probably a smart move. I don't have a lot of that. I have I only have 500 acres, not 400 acres if I do the math right, where it has been wheat canola. So I don't know, maybe I do some. Here's another thing that we got to do. For the first time ever for us, we're going to put crop dividers on. Instructions. Hopefully that helps. I do like instructions. Despite not always listening to the instructions. Well, we're gonna try and do this as per the instructions. I'll touch on why we chose these in a bit once we get ourselves figured out, but they said we need to be on flat ground. There's a spot where you got to do some leveling and squaring up, so we'll pull it inside here. Okay, we're mostly done the first one. Took a little bit to, I wouldn't say make sense of the, oh, you can adjust the pitch of the cone. Okay. Okay, we're going to have to change something. Dad was reading the instructions. I was under there, as you probably saw. Overall, it's not a bad install. It's just kind of a little bit awkward there. But we got to cork the front out of that just a little more, and that'll square things up. And we also thought that we had a 6-inch or 8-inch magnetic level somewhere. We were just going to slap on the side right there or here. And we don't. I don't know if it's at my place or it got lost or what, but Dad had to run to town to buy one. Overall, definitely looks like it will be a fairly simple job to remove them, and I think one person could easily do it. Really, you got to undo this bolt, and pull the pin, and it should come out. Obviously, you might have to jiggle it a bit. Speaking of jiggle, that is the one thing I'm a little worried about, but maybe once we get some grease in there, it'll tighten itself up a little. Just a little too much play on that. Why we started on the front passenger side, I don't know, it just seemed easiest. We have the EK crop dividers. EK Enterprises crop dividers. Now, I'm a little torn on them because I'm not sure. I haven't seen world-class results, but having talked to a few people, they do believe they help. And based on how much moisture our crops have had this year, they're like, we've got almost, I would say, excessive moisture in places. We have really good looking crop right now. So I don't know, hopefully we can reduce our tramp with these, and also then, you know, it makes harvestability a little easier, and you know, hopefully they pay for themselves essentially. So there's two different ones I was really looking at. Obviously the EK ones, and the other is Tridecon, I think is what they're called. The EK ones are made in Purdue, Saskatchewan. The Tridacons are made in, I think, Neepawa, Manitoba. Either way, they're not terribly far away from us. Almost the same distance, like 4 or 5 hours. I talked to a few guys that had the Tridacons and they liked them, except some of the older ones, they didn't have great adjustability. Everybody said they're heavy. They did have a neat package. Probably if we had our 3330, we would have been able to do they have like an air lift package, and I don't know if that just helps it contour a bit better, or if that's so that you can, if you want to put it onto a sprayer trailer, you just flick a switch. I don't know. It was a $2,000 option, but we don't have an air compressor on this. We have a little air pump, and that's for the reversing fan. But on the 3330, there was an air tank back here somewhere. I can't remember exactly where. This one doesn't have it. I kind of do wish I had it, because then I would have rigged in an air purge of some sort. But different problem, different day, different sprayer. Tridacons, everybody said, are very heavy and awkward to install. These are fairly light, if I'm honest. I can manhandle them with one hand. The Tridacons, they kind of have a float system to them. The older ones are rigid, and it looks like the newer ones have some sort of float system. I'm not advertising for either. What I am saying is these have a couple of cool features that I quite like, and that's why I went with these. I haven't seen anybody around here with these style. Now these are poly instead of steel, but they're hinged, so you can actually lift them out of the way if you ever had a sprayer trailer that you wanted. So I priced out these. I compared them to the Tridacons. They were virtually identical, as long as you didn't get that air kit. That wouldn't have done us any good on the Tridacon. The big feature of these that I really like, number one, they float really nice. They're not heavy. I guess there's a few features on it. Number one is the weight and the fact that they're made out of poly. That's going to give us the ability to install them ourselves, lift them ourselves, easier to store, hopefully. Number two is ease of adjustment. Again, I haven't seen the other ones close up, but all you got to do is pull a bolt and change your spot there. And there's three adjustment holes here, 2 up here. I haven't put the chain hook in for keeping them lifted. The big feature for me that I really like, because I heard some guys had some problems where you'd hit a gully, maybe you didn't know the field so well, maybe she got overloaded with crop, and what it'll do is it'll trip. It can trip and release, and if it's tripped, it can also get lifted. So it'll bounce through a gully, or a washout. It will, lift. If you stick the tip, it'll hinge itself out. And that, to me, is one of the biggest features, probably the selling feature to me as to why I went with the EK ones. So hopefully they're durable enough. Seem like good, fairly hard poly. Drained out the filters, checked them out, cleaned them up. You can see we function tested everything pretty heavily. Just got everything back together. Just gonna double check nothing's dripping or leaking or malfunctioning some way, shape, or form. And then we got to double check a couple settings on the ProView, and we're set to go. now that we're all done, and we went and toured around, nothing's quite ready to spray. So I figured I'd give a little feedback on the install. Sprayer's outside, so we got good light. A couple things. Actually, is a fairly easy install. Just that the pictures on a couple of the pictures are kind of hard to decipher. But other than that, it's once you get one, everything makes sense. It's nice that they came labeled everything, and a lot of it was pre-assembled. We didn't have to assemble that trip mechanism or the hinge. You can see in there it says front left. Yeah, they have different points on the front than the back. Not sure. I do recall them saying that we're getting the fungicide, or maybe it was one set of fungicide and one set of pre-harvest. I don't know what the difference is. I'll have to look into that. I don't know if we can just swap them front to back. I don't know. I wouldn't rule it out. One thing I am a little concerned of is about how far back. I was kind of expecting them to come back to probably another 6 inches. So we'll see how they work. I'm sure they'll work better than what we had been doing. Install. Relatively simple, just quite awkward. So first thing you're gonna do, well, usually the first thing so I'm on the back. On the front, you have to undo this guy. And then on the back, you have to undo both of these. It just gives you the room to pull these hoses out of the way to get this big honking bracket in there. Next step is to undo this bolt. And then you put this little eye bolt thing on. You screw it up, leave it loose. Then you put this big bracket on. And that eye bolt holds it relatively in place, which is quite handy. Then you we started at the top and worked our way down. And yeah, it's fairly straightforward. The one thing we did change there's two things actually we changed. There's a handful of leftover bolts, and I'm assuming it's just for different kits, whether it's John Deere or Fendt or Rogator or Agrifac, I don't know. But we don't like, especially on something like this, just lock washers. So we changed out the stock bolts. They just sent us regular UNC bolts. Or sorry, nuts. Sent us UNC nuts. So we changed all of the nuts over to, I don't know if you call them stovers, that's usually what I call these, or cone lock, or crimped, you can see. So we changed them all out. And that's about the only difference. And we didn't put the second, we were gonna that's probably fine. We'll see. We're gonna go for a rip with it, and we just want to see if things are rubbing real hard. If they are, we might have to wrap it with a piece of canvas, but I don't think it should be much of a problem. The other thing we didn't do is we didn't put there's a spot for a chain hook so that you can shorten your like if you're gonna go put it on a sprayer trailer, you can just lift them up and chain them short somehow. I don't know. I was looking, and I think if a guy really tried, you could probably lift these up and hook them up on there too if need be. So we just left them off because I didn't want to hear dinging all freaking day. Oh yeah, things are looking pretty good out here. This is our first field of wheat that is going to be sprayed. Obviously I'm spraying it. Dad sprayed some of his canola, which we didn't think would be ready, and he is excited. You know, from what he saw, I don't know if I've ever seen better looking canola. We got the crop dividers going. It's really, really hard to see them at work because there's stuff in the way on both sides. If we get far enough back, maybe. I don't know. It definitely hanging junk on them a little bit, but I do think they're working. Like, it's kind of nice to see the way it gets pushed to the side of the tire, not forward in line with the tire. So hopefully that means some of it recovers. And I foresee that being dangerous. If you're not paying attention, take that right in the shin. But, oof, just scratched myself there, not even 10 seconds later. I did have this guy trip when I was going off the ditch. It works fine.